I'm glad that we're taking the time to do that, because one of the principles of the Poor People's Campaign is building relationships. Go figure, how you organized. So we're now recording. So again, I don't believe your names are showing on that, but just in case, if you don't want to be on, go ahead and hop off and you can watch the recording later. We've mentioned it a few times. We had the teach-in. It was very, very successful. A lot of folks came together to make that happen, and they are planning to do more of those. So keep an eye out for that. We'll definitely be promoting them, if not part of the organizing of those. So for those of you who are part of labor unions, if you have an idea and you want to get involved in that organizing, we can connect on the back end and make sure. You know, Romy's been our guy on that front, so he'll definitely make sure you get connected to the folks who are organizing those teach-ins. And then in general, we're doing the monthly teach-ins virtually, going to keep those going throughout COVID specifically. We've talked about a couple of things for October. It's a month right before the presidential election season. So we could talk about a myriad of things that have to do with voting and elections. Maybe doing some case studies on anything that's on the ballot. Let us know what your ideas are. We also did a ballot party a couple years ago. That was kind of a fun event. We had a panel, we sat around. We actually didn't do too much structured, like filling out the ballot and going through the issues, but there were a lot of good conversations. I learned some interesting things actually from Karen that day about solar panels in Seattle, because I had heard a rumor that it's actually not, like, why do you need them in Seattle? It's not that beneficial. That is a lie, or it's a myth. So anytime we can come together, right, and have those different conversations about different things, including this virtual time, we're going to try to do that. If you have, the thing is, like I said, we're a small team, so we need folks who can be the ones to kind of manage and keep that stuff going. We'll give you whatever resources you need, whatever information you need. But if you're feeling called to get folks together, even if it's 3 or 4 people, right, like doing a watch party or something for one of the national live streams, whatever it might be, we're happy to help you get that organized. But we just really do need to see more folks kind of taking that initiative, and then we can support you versus us trying to deliver down this super programmatic way of here's step 1, 2, 3 on how you get involved, because depending on where you're at in the state, the local needs are going to be different. Who's been doing the work on the ground locally is going to be super important. So there's just so many layers to it that there's just not a one size fits all right now. Many of you have filled out the what's it called? The power mapping survey. So power mapping meaning we're trying to map out where our power is amongst the people. So we're asking you questions in that survey about who you're connected with. Like many of you have mentioned the labor unions that you're part of, or the congregations that you're part of. So we're kind of trying to figure out where that overlap is, and then just also like regionally to start connecting individuals. We're doing it kind of haphazardly here on the call, but that's also, you know, normal, right? Human connection. But trying to do that in a more organized way of saying, okay, let's do a call just for this region, and like having a smaller call where folks can really dig in and get to know each other, or potentially doing some breakout rooms during these open houses. So we've got some different things up in the air. I just can't speak to anything specifically because I'm the only one on here, and we don't do that. One person can't speak for the whole team. That's with the campaign. It's very rare for us to have, well, Romy's on, so I guess we could come up with some stuff here, but nothing's been decided yet. So just kind of keep on those emails that come out. If you're not signed up for those, I'm going to go ahead and drop now in the chat, poorpeoplescampaign.org. That's the national website. If you sign up on there, and I believe you type in your zip code, or you just mark off Washington State. I haven't seen the latest design on the website. That will get you signed up for the national emails, as well as the emails that come from Washington State. And as annoying as a full email inbox can be, and as unresponsive as we can be sometimes with our emails, that is the best way in terms of a one-way communication from us. To stay up to date, that's going to be the most consistent way to get updates from Washington State. And we're also somewhat active on Facebook, and we've got a Twitter account and an Instagram account that are pretty inactive. So if anybody's super passionate about those platforms or social media in general, that's definitely going to be a role that's just always kind of needing, it's a team effort, right? You always have to have folks on that. So that's kind of where we're going in terms of building that out. Just realized I need to do a quick zoom back. Poor People's Campaign, many folks mentioned Dr. King worked on it right before he was assassinated. And I think most people would agree on this call that he was assassinated because he started talking about money and not just talking about race, but bringing people together across those racial lines to talk about militarism and poverty. And then racism still, of course, because we know it's all still rooted in that initial, how this country was set up, right? So that kind of died down to an extent in terms of maybe the popularity of the campaign, but the organizing was still going on. There's people to this day working on the campaign now that worked on the original campaign. So it never really stopped. This work never will stop because as we achieve, there will always be some force, right, coming. I mean, maybe one day, but probably not in our lifetime. So we're going to have to keep fighting. And that's what the campaign is really about, is that long-term vision of saying all these things are interlocked together. And okay, sorry, I just saw your question, Lillian. Thank you. Interlocked together, solutions need to be interlocked together. Many of you mentioned that, right? Coming together across these silos, that when we can focus, say, on maybe one piece of legislation that's very narrow and focused, but we're still going to bring a lens and a conversation and analysis around it that talks about how it touches these other areas, because none of it is really by itself. So that's kind of a quick overview of the Poor People's Campaign, relaunched in 2018 with 40 days of mass action in state capitals in Washington, D.C. Over 2,000 arrests over those 6 weeks. A couple people on this call were arrested for the campaign. So in terms of people asking like what types of actions do we do? Direct action. We do educational things like the teach-ins, just community building things. When we were out in Spokane trying to build up a chapter out there, we did just some service. So we went to, I believe it's called, is it Family Hope or Hope Family? It's I think there's 2 different shelters that they host in the Spokane area and maybe one on this side of the state. Either way, they had just gotten a new building and we were able to go over there and bring some food and hang out with the folks who are staying there. And that kind of touches, I think, on the events. We've done vigils, we of course march. So sometimes it includes civil disobedience, sometimes it doesn't. I'm trying to think if I've touched on all the types of, like, we kind of do it all in a sense. But the biggest thing that we've done, I think, is support other actions that are going on because of how small of a team we are. So we've done things in coordination with like No New Youth Jail here locally in Seattle. And then doing things like with the labor union, right? And like teaming up with those to have these events, and been a lot of conversation trying to build power and build our numbers. So we've got like a nice large email list, but then it's like getting into that next step. So that's where we're at. We've got some numbers and interest. There's 30 people on this call right now. How do we get from here of, okay, we're gathering, we're interested, we all agree that this is important. We understand that systemic racism, that poverty, the ecological devastation, militarism, and this distorted moral narrative are interlocked and that they need to be addressed together. So what's the next step? In the meantime, there's an uprising, a pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. We've got elections, which have been going on, I feel like, for 4 years, not 2, but it's really, we've been able to establish these monthly open house calls consistently. We're doing the teach-ins now. And I think it's really going to take folks stepping up and saying, yeah, I'm starting a chapter in South Seattle, and coming together and saying, hey, I need to commit to talking to Sue and Lillian, who lives down here with us, but is in, her church is in near UW, and just kind of finding those connections, right? So that's the next phase. I know that's really convoluted, but that's where we're at. In terms of funds, Jay mentioned that we're looking for a fiscal sponsor. So we lost our fiscal sponsor who um, gave us ample notice. We just had a hard time finding a replacement. So there's been this gap time. Um, Basically, how it works is we're not an organization. Reverend Barb always says we're an organism. So we have, in this case, it was a church, and I think we have a church that's lined up. If not, Jay, yes, let's. I definitely want to make sure that we keep that conversation going. But basically how that works is the church is a fiscal sponsor, meaning they have kind of like a separate bank account for us and they manage the funds. So you would donate to the church memo line, Poor People's Campaign. And that's kind of how that would work. And so that's why you've probably been getting like some runaround answers, Lillian, about where to send that money, because there's nowhere for you to send the money. And we're just kind of at a limbo right there. But that's kind of how that process works. In terms of how funds get used, we've been fundraising as needed in the past. And what we want to move to a model is getting monthly donations so that we can plan more of an ongoing and more of a trajectory and like plan out ahead of things and really be able to show you what we're going to use that money for. It's gone to things just like event, you know, your typical event expenses when it comes to getting sound, food, all that kind of stuff, banners. We try to give, we always have impacted people speak. We try, if we can raise enough money, give monetary compensation to those folks who are not just giving their time, but like reliving their trauma for us to learn. Lots of things. So we're very transparent with it. If you want money to go towards a specific thing, you can also do that. Say that you want this to go towards direct action, or you want this to go towards direct or towards impacted people, or you want it to go towards food, you can specify. Let's see, we got some more questions, I think, in the chat again. Oh yeah, so tri-chair model. Let me step back again. At the national level, there are 2 co-chairs. Not sure why they don't do this on the national level, but at the state level, we do 3 tri-chairs. Traditionally, that's going to be 1 clergy or faith leader. Well, we have 2 right now, but Bianca was filling that position. There's 1 impacted person, meaning typically a poor person or a person of color. And then the 3rd person is kind of an open seat ally, could be somebody ideally outside of the church systems, I think was the intention there. So that's kind of how we're set up right now. So we have Nathan and Bianca, and that 3rd seat is open. We are still building up I guess what you would consider maybe bylaws or things like that, some of our guidelines on how we want to fill that seat. And as that develops, I think that's something I'm just going to highlight that we should make an update on what our process is for that. And I would just like some other folks to speak on that as well. So I'm going to say that we'll give you a better update on that answer. There's definitely some seniority there, but not necessarily. This is about building new leadership too. So we definitely need a little bit of time with you to get to know you, to build up some trust, right? But it doesn't necessarily need to be like, oh, the people who've been here the longest are going to move into the tri-chair seat. That's not how it works. So that's, again, not the clearest answer, but annual expenditures. Yes, actually, let me make a note of that. I can find that document. We do have, from last year, we haven't done it for this year, but from last year, an annual review that showed how much money we raised and kind of a breakdown of all the events that we did and what it went to. So I can kind of give you like a snapshot of what we've done in the past. Annual finance. Thank you for bearing with me. I have to be very specific. Okay. And then communication between PPC and the other labor left, such as DSA. We have had some folks from DSA, I'm assuming like Democratic Socialists, maybe. Brian, let me know if you need something else. I know we've had folks on the call. Okay, yeah, I know we've had folks on the calls and in the meetings. I don't think they've endorsed us officially, so there's another way that your organization can be involved. You can like officially endorse the campaign. So some of you who mentioned your churches like the Unitarian Universalists, or wait, no, the UCC, the United Church of Christ, they're like a national endorser. So then each church locally could also then be an endorser of the Washington campaign. And
So
then
what does that entail? Just a statement?
it's completely up to you. We don't like overregulate what that means, but ideally if you have us on your website, maybe you're keeping updates in your newsletter, you're promoting our events on your social media. Ideally, because you're talking about it, folks are going to come to our events and just kind of naturally get involved. Or we've had like the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Edmonds. They've taken on multiple fundraising roles for us and setting up events and kind of like just organizing all of that. And like we just kind of come in and do our part. And that's been really helpful to us. That's how we were actually able to get to DC last summer, where we met Romy. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
No, thank you. That gives me a sense of what's going on and maybe how it's University Congregational United Church of Christ. It's just such a mouthful. Sorry.
Yeah, but, you know, my notes are going to be bad on that. But yes,
but we would like to be closer and useful and supportive. So maybe we can talk some more.
Yes, we definitely can. I'm definitely willing to do something, maybe another call we could do it between now and next first Monday, since that's like a whole month. If folks are like really ready to go, let me go ahead and drop my email, because the team one is a mess. I don't know. I'll just put my personal one in there. I just want to make sure I jotted down a couple other things to address really quickly. To go back to the labor councils and such, we absolutely we have like connections. We need to deepen those relationships, absolutely. And so any ideas for how to do those things? For folks signing off, thank you so much for joining. Okay, I think
Christina?
I got my, yes.
I just wanted to add, Lillian, if you check the chat, I sent you I'll send you some information. If you'll send me your email address, and I've got some stuff from Nathan already that I can pass on to you that you can look at. And it may help the rest of the team out a little bit.
Yeah, we'll do. Oops, what did I just do?
That like organizing, that's that self-organizing that I'm talking about. Yes. You got the information, please, yes, go ahead and pass that along. I'm just gonna go through the chat, and then for folks who didn't get a chance to say hi, I think I have finished my main updates. Oh, I did want to just talk about in Longview, they basically started like a study group. So it was a church, I can't remember which church, in Longview, same thing, few different people, including the pastor, have been talking about the campaign and like, what can we do? What can we do? So they started weekly. They're going to have, I believe it's virtual, a Zoom call like this where they talk about the campaign. And as you know, there's always stuff coming down from national. So there's kind of always something new to discuss there, something to watch and tune into and discuss afterwards. So it's kind of like a base level way to get involved. Who do you know that, you know, their values are aligning, but maybe they haven't really stepped into that next level of getting involved, and like maybe there's some of those folks that you can invite to a conversation or invite to this call next month. Yeah, the main call to action is to just stay on top of the emails and give us grace because we're a small team. And then now I'm going to go back through I just want to get that out real quick for anybody that needs to jump. Let's see, John Vito, I'm working on connecting across groups to respond to the escalating of violence associated with the election. I'm suggesting a spokes council. I wonder if would have anyone who'd participate in a spokes council focused on nonviolent response to right-wing violence. That is very interesting. John, you didn't actually get to say hi at the beginning anyways. Would you like to go ahead and come off mute and introduce yourself to the group? And then I didn't give the update on training, so we can kind of talk about that real quick.
Okay. Yeah, hi, I'm John Vito. You can use the pronoun that seems most appropriate to you when talking about me. I'm in Olympia at the moment, but mostly I stay in Seattle. I became aware of the New Poor People's Campaign when Reverend Barber announced it in Selma in 2015, and I helped to organize the Bay Area Poor People's Campaign supporters, or I guess maybe it's a chapter now. And yeah, I'm working with some groups in the Seattle area, and trying to bridge or catalyze folks to from the nonviolent direct action organizations to come together and strategize about how to what a nonviolent response to right-wing violence can be, and how we can work together to native response.
Great. I do think there's interest, if not on this call, amongst our group in general. As you know, John was there, and this is how we met Herman, and I think a couple other folks on the call came to some of our nonviolent militant civil disobedience trainings. Militant nonviolent civil disobedience trainings, which we want to do more of. Reverend Seck, who's actually going to be back in Seattle soon. So there's some talks around that piece. And amongst that, we have like a list of over 400 emails from people who attended or at least registered for those trainings. And so we've, through those events, been having conversations that kind of fit in with what John's talking about here, of like having kind of a spokes council, some sort of like response team for these different instances that we're seeing, whether it's stuff that's planned on its own or the disruptors that are coming to actions that are kind of left-led. So there's a little bit of both. I do think there is interest there. There's definitely need for it. And oh, Karen, yes, thank you. 350.org is also working on some trainings. They've reached out to me. I'm talking to somebody from their group tomorrow. So I think there's something right here. There's some overlap here and a need. So yes. And then I also saw a question.
Can I say something?
Yeah, let me answer this one question and then yes.
Sure.
Somebody asked about, can folks, once we get our fiscal sponsor, yes, you will be able to do the tax deductions and everything like that will still apply. So whenever we get that set up, whether it's individuals, corporations, those donations will still work that way that you're used to. And then
that was my question. It's
okay, I knew somebody asked. I was like, I lost it. I can't see it anymore. Excellent. So yeah, that'll work that way once we get set up. Okay, who wanted to jump in?
Marcia?
Marcia, please.
Hello, Marcia. Yeah, was there somebody else on this call from Bellingham?
Yes,
No.
Ryan, he said that he messaged you. I don't know if you know how to access the chat box in the Zoom app. I don't know if you
Yeah, and do you have emails like from this conversation to send out? And I'd really like yours as a way to, you know, if I'm not able to get a hold at the state level of someone, that maybe you could help me.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there a way that you?
Yeah.
Do you have my email? You can see it.
Did you put it in the chat box? Are you able to access the chat there?
Well, I guess it's under the more button on the screen here?
Possible.
I'll look for it. And anyway, yeah, I'd like to get together with Ryan if we could help set up that. And then in regard to the nonviolence, I've been following and doing so much research, but there is a Croatian philosopher, Sreko Horvat, who's working with Diem and Progressives International. He wrote a book called The Radicality of Love. And he says that if love is not at the basis of any movement, it will not succeed. And I thought that if everybody accepted that mandate, that anybody who starts to act out can be identified right away as not being with your group. So yeah, I'd like to become and get my church to become a chapter. So any help that I can get with that. My pastor couldn't be on the call tonight, but I'm on it for him. So I really appreciate and I really feel strongly about getting the word out. People still don't know about the Poor People's Campaign. And I think it's the only thing going that can succeed.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, we definitely need to talk more. If you, I think if you tap that more button, you should see an option for chat. And then if you can just type in your email address, we can make sure that we get connected.
Okay,
Make sure that
thank you.
Ryan has-
Uh-huh.
You're very welcome. And then I just did hear one thing. I'm a language person, and I love this idea of like radical love, and I'm thinking of several quotes right now. But I do just want to kind of throw out
Could you
there.
speak up, Christina? I could hear Marcia just fine, but I wonder if you could speak either
Yeah, the
closer to where
microphone
the
on this
microphone.
computer sucks. I'm sorry. Might have a GoFundMe going for that when this thing crashes. But
Because I still haven't figured out what this group is actually doing, what you individually and what you're doing as a group. I'm trying to.
okay. Cool. Well, we'll stay on and make sure all your all questions are answered. I'll stay on for a little bit longer. Yeah, Marcia, we'll get set up. Radical love. I just want to say that sometimes love looks like anger and curse words and shouting, and there might be some fire involved. So we definitely we don't want to police people, and like sometimes it is harder to tell where people are coming from. So that's why we got to build relationships and make sure that we don't just know people because we think they're acting a correct way or they're acting aligned to us, but we've gotten to actually know them and we know that they're with us. So that is good. Okay, so just to kind of recap, the Poor People's Campaign, National Call for Moral Revival. This is a multifaceted, it's multi-generational. We literally come at everything from a multi-pronged angle. We're talking about 5 main pillars: racism, systemic racism specifically, poverty, ecological devastation, militarism, and the distorted moral narrative. So for my church folks out there, which I am not, we're reclaiming your Bible and those who try to use it to justify hate against people. And then just any like false narrative, right? The bootstrap myth that if you just worked a little bit harder, you wouldn't be poor, it's your fault, right? We're fighting against all those immoral narratives. And the way that we do that is through building power. Just simple things like this of like, it feels good sometimes if, I don't know how, maybe I came from a conservative family, so it feels good just to be around like-minded folks sometimes and building community, learning, education, and then direct action. We have shut things down, and we had the city of Olympia trying to negotiate with us to stop our 40 days of mass action. We have done supporting legislation, different efforts that have gone in here, and then at a national level, there's also going to be some legislation put forth from the campaign. We work closely with the Institute of Policy Study on that. So on the national website, you can find the audit called the Souls of Poor Folks that basically says, in some ways, we're worse off than we were 50 years ago when the first Poor People's Campaign started. And then you'll also see what we released last year is the moral budget. And this is basically taking the national budget and saying, we don't need to be spending all this money on the military. We could reallocate it here. It's very much similar to the demands that we're seeing here in Seattle at a local level of defunding the police and reallocating those funds. It's exactly what the moral budget's saying, if you think about the police as the US military. So it literally breaks down in those different sections of how money can be reallocated to pay for healthcare for all, to have pre-K and up childcare, living wages. The demand list is long. And so what we're doing right now in Washington State is really trying to build up power in terms of, as a state, we've got like this list, we've got people engaged, but we're really, really needing to do to move to the next level of taking action and like holding politicians accountable, getting legislation changed, getting people organized in the streets when necessary, is getting local chapters kind of set up. So what we're looking for is folks who are ready, whether it's getting their congregation locked in or their group, their community group locked in, or if you just want to help build up a chapter in your region. So we've heard South Seattle, we've heard Bellingham, Longview starting off theirs. We've had some folks down in the Vancouver area starting to organize a bit. And that's kind of the quick and dirty. Individually, I'm not with any church or nonprofit. I do contract work for Microsoft right now. We've got some clergy folk on our team. We've got people like Romy who are deep in the labor movement. We're a small team, but individually, most of the other folks are either working at a nonprofit or are affiliated with a congregation of some sort. Brian, and also, like, if anybody else wants to come off that didn't get to say hi and introduce themselves at the beginning, we can still do that. I'm also not a religious person. So if you feel compelled to, if you know, just from a proximity standpoint, if you want to reach out to anybody nearby, that's absolutely welcome. But again, like, we need everybody involved, not just faith communities, and we are part of Faith Action Network. So really, we have a pretty strong tie that we could work that relationship a little bit better. So I think if you're not religious, I'd actually be more curious in, like, I don't know, what industry do you work in? Like, where are some other folks that aren't getting this message already? Maybe we can try to tap in with them instead. Oh, Sue, thank you for, yes, local voter discussion. I would agree. We really love to do that. We last summer did this forum. It was a whole day thing and it was amazing in some ways, but it was a long day. And instead of doing a pseudo debate that they do with the presidential candidates, we did a forum where it was Reverend Barber, Reverend Liz Theo Harris, and she's from Colorado, Joy Reid from MSNBC. They were the moderators, and then the one candidate was kind of in the hot seat. They got a few minutes at the beginning to give their prepared talk. Our current candidate was not very prepared with his talk, but I would like to see something like that locally. I think that would be really fun. So yeah, I'd like to see definitely more of that as well. Maybe that's what our teaching can maybe be around voter discussion around the local issues. I see from Benjamin, new to Seattle, moved here from Oregon, United Methodist. Oh, excellent. Okay, I think I caught the comments. I see Ben waving, or Benjamin, sorry. Did not mean to cut your name short. Do you want to go ahead and say hi? I'm going to go around and we'll do that and then try to answer everybody's questions. So Benjamin.
Hi, you can call me Ben. That's fine.
Okay.
I don't have a lot to add other than I'm new and I'll show up to more of these gatherings as time goes on. But if anyone wants to connect with me, I'm interested in building some relationships along this style of organizing that I really believe in. So thanks everybody for being here. Peace.
Thank you. I didn't hear what area are you in? Sorry.
I live in the Queen Anne neighborhood.
Queen Anne. Okay, excellent. Yeah. All right. Does anybody else, you can either use the raise your hand feature or just go ahead and go off and mute if you didn't get a chance to say hello earlier and you'd like to, or if you have a question. And or if you have a question. Or if I missed your question in the chat, feel free to either drop it back in or come off mute. And okay, new, yes.
Yeah, I want to touch on the personal giving. and the notion of, how does it work? Because I guess I'm really, I just want to know, who do we send the resources to, and is it an email that we can send,
Okay.
a
Let me
check to? Or is it an address we can send a check to?
So yeah, let me just time out real quick. Sorry to cut you off, but at this moment, we cannot accept funds. Period.
Oh, okay. I mean, I can
The
keep
answer is
that.
nowhere. But no, once we get our new fiscal sponsor, it will be on the website. There will be an easy form to fill out where folks can use their credit card. We'll have an address that they can send checks. In person only, we'll accept cash. So there will be all the ways, but right now the answer is just nothing.
So I guess I'm kind of, just work with me now while I'm, because I'm kind of curious.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm hearing is that you can't accept donations now because you don't have a primary sponsor.
Correct. So you'd be sending the money to an individual like me, and no individual on our team is willing. We're just not doing that.
Okay, so is there any way we can find out about getting something set up like that, through the actual network? I mean,
yeah. We've got somebody. We have somebody lined up. They were supposed to be voting on it back in July. I'm not sure what the update is on that, but it sounds like Ray, who was on the call earlier, mentioned that he had also had a church that was prepared to do it. So it's just a matter of like getting it done. So it's a little bit of a bureaucratic thing right now, like with this other church, in terms of them getting their meeting and being able to vote. So last I heard, it was like just an unofficial yes. And I still haven't seen an update, but to be fair, I haven't caught up on all my emails from my vacation in August. So there could be an update.
Christina,
Yeah, Ray. You haven't.
I don't want to interrupt you.
No, if you've got
Maybe
some
I can be
share.
helpful on this a little bit. I have been working a bit with Nathan and a prior tri-chair member prior to that on looking at the sponsorship issue. I had hoped, and my social ministries committee was very optimistic about our church becoming a sponsoring organization.
Okay.
However, when I moved through the organizational structure a bit, it turned out that our church finances are really monitored, coordinated, in and out monies and everything. All the major accounting functions are done through one person. And she's also sort of does a number of other functions, and she is really swamped. And the finance committee
church
felt that it wasn't appropriate for her to take that responsibility on at this time. There's another member of my committee who has a background in nonprofit finance and management. And she was looking at the possibility of we could set up through just the social ministries committee a separate account that would get reported to the church, but wouldn't require any. That's obviously taking quite a long time to try and recreate that. And I think the tri-chairs are really very engaged people. I'm retired, so I have a lot more time, but they're really engaged with poor people issues. I mean, they're working with people every day, and long days at times, especially during COVID and that. And to create an organization, do an incorporation process, and then have the people and structures where to meet state requirements to have a not-for-profit organization are just more than they want to waste their time on right now. If you want to look at it that way. So finding a sponsoring institution, and I was just working, I was kind of off camera, but I was listening, getting some information to Lillian about the kind of process that we work through, so other organizations. So if you're an organization out there that you think you have the ability to take on this sponsorship where the Poor People's Campaign would act like a committee or a task force or whatever organization you have in terms of teams that have some control of some money within your organization. The Washington Poor People's Campaign, the steering committee can identify some people. And again, we don't want to share this list because those people could, if the Poor People's Campaign were targeted from some reason politically or whatever, we don't want to share those names around too much because then they're going to be targeted as organizers and it's not fair to them necessarily to have that widespread. But those people in a confidential situation would be the people who could sign off and make a request through your organization for the use of the funds for a specific thing. You would have a group of people who would then sign off on that through to your organization's financial thing saying, this is a request, and money would come out of a line item that would track both the receipts from the Poor People's Campaign donations and then also track expenditures out. So you'd have a record of what was spent. That keeps your not-for-profit organization in compliance with the law about nonprofit donations, and it doesn't put any of the financial sort of organizational work on the steering committee.
On the tri-chair.
On the tri-chairs or the steering committee folks, right?
So is this something that I should bring up with the financial people at my church? I mean,
I'll finish my email to you, Lillian. If there's other people that want to get that information, I'm happy to help Christina and the other people out to share that with other organizations to a certain extent, to explain what the problems and the issues are. And then if your organization's enthusiastic about that, which I had hoped mine would be, but it didn't work out that way.
Well, enthusiastic and able.
Yeah, you have
and
to have
able,
the
yeah,
capacity.
and able, because you may, unbeknownst to you, may run into a similar kind of issue. So
Yeah, that's what happened. We
but
have steering committee.
I'm happy to help people look under every nonprofit rock we can find, and unions can be sponsors. Any nonprofit not-for-profit organization could be a sponsor.
So
I'm
Christina,
still trying to figure out, I wish I could, let's see, am I unmuted? I wish I could understand in what way this organization is working on those 5 prongs. Are we doing it in connection always with other organizations? It's not clear from anything I've heard today. For example, I liked Susan Ratner's idea of having a panel discussion of candidates, for example. But I have that opportunity through the Democratic and Republican organizations, and sometimes churches on the east side of Seattle do that too. But what is it that we are going to do as a group that will act on any of those 5 prongs you talk about? Good. Is somebody going to say?
Ryan, to hear from Ryan on that.
All right. So, I mean, what they've done that's really substantial for me from what you're asking about is they put together some actual legislation and they presented that to all the congressmen across the country on all their different points in their platform and different legislation that they want to have passed. So that, unlike some other groups, they've actually presented solutions with legal ways to address them. Not necessarily as boisterous and as well presented in the media or the mainstream society as, other organizations are, but they're a lot more like unified and organized in how they make their approach, which if you want to go into bias conversation, this is a little bit off, but I think that's on purpose that the media doesn't represent them because they are so proper about how they go about things. It's hard to spin the story into some negative thing on the news because they do peacefully organize. They teach people how to peacefully protest. They come up with solutions and they're not out burning cities down. So what they're doing is they're educating, they're growing leaders, and they're building a movement that is effective. And they're using the skills and the blueprint that Martin Luther King left us. It's just, it's really coming to the forefront now because we're at this boiling point, and there's like this 50 to 60 year gap between when it was last used. So we're basically taking an old engine and we're oiling it up, and we're getting to the point where we're ready to fire it up and drive the bus home.
And when you say they, you mean all of you on the screen? And
Everyone across the country.
oh, okay.
This is just the Washington branch.
I understand.
Okay.
And this is an open house call, so there's several other people who are in the same boat as you, first time kind of on here. So yeah, and that's when I was saying I was kind of like flying solo. Myself and Romy are the only people who were on out of this whole group that are actually part of the coordinating committee for the state. So unfortunately you didn't get to meet us too much. And Ryan, if I could give a gentle, you're part of the campaign now, and just say we, what we're doing. And so, and that's another element too, for folks, if like you resonate with the campaign, like you're part of the campaign, you're just not necessarily part of the committee or whatever it is, like you can say that, like say it proudly, tell all your friends, change your Facebook banner or whatever, all those little things that you can do, just those little subtle ways, right? I think Brian had mentioned in a comment, I think it was Brian, maybe, that he tries to talk to his coworkers sometimes and folks are just kind of busy and caught up in their lives. So just even that little thing on the bottom of your picture on Facebook or like whatever it is, just kind of remind folks where you stand, I think is helpful. And then let's see, there was another question. Oh, formal steps about being a supporter. So in that document that I mentioned, the getting started document that I'm going to send out, it has I believe the specific steps, but it's pretty informal. I think we might have a Google form or it might just be an email process, but either way, you would let us know what you're interested in doing in terms of, we want to have you on the website, or we want to have a blurb in our newsletter. We want to have a presentation. If you want us to come and speak and do kind of a formal kickoff in that way, well, not come in the Zoom.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we usually kick off that relationship, but we honestly have a lot of endorsers who've never even talked to us. They're just like endorsing us. So there's an informal way. And then if you want to be more than just like, okay, we're saying that we endorse you, but we want to get something going, we can just start those conversations. And again, just some grace on response times. And
So would somebody be willing to make a little blurb and show up in our virtual Sunday service?
yeah, I think, yeah, again, any of those little drops, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
might not seem like it's doing something, but maybe somebody's busy, and then that one day they're not busy and they're like, oh, I'm going to check out the
Yeah,
campaign, right?
thank you.
So yeah, I think that, yeah, if there's
I'll get back to you.
something you can do, how do we get t-shirts, stickers, etc.? That is a really great question that I also have. There used to be a store on the national website and it has disappeared recently. I don't know how long it's been, but I wanted to buy the hoodie and the store is gone. Is it back up? It might be. I haven't looked in a while. So, but Nationals is supposed to have swag, but we also have access to the files. So if anybody knows a company who might want to print some stickers pro bono or something, like, let us know. We can definitely get that going. Or if you, yeah, that's really frustrating because I literally pay to print some stuff myself if I must. Yeah, we can totally figure out how to get you some art files, and you can get some stuff done individually as well if you've got the hookup there, or however that works. I think we can make that work too. But there's so much energy on this call. I'm like, I want to organize something now. Like, let's commit to something. What if we do a follow-up call to this before the next month's? Does that feel like something? Because I feel like
Yes.
a lot of energy coming in, a lot of questions. I heard a yes. I see
Just another Zoom call.
another Zoom call. Check in. Say like a halfway
Yes.
check-in? Okay. because I'm feeling that too, but I'm also getting hungry. So I'm like, let's do both. All right, so I
have an idea I'd like to ask.
great. I will commit to
Marcia?
scheduling, and then let's hear Marsha's idea.
Well, I was thinking with my pastor, if we could get something from you, like a logo, we'd like to put up posters around town,
Okay.
just to alert people to the existence. So if you had some
that,
kind of a poster that you felt, yeah, thank you.
We can definitely get that going. I recently learned how to wheat paste with the glue and the paper posters on public.
Cool.
But so I'm all for that. But we have a lot of different artwork. I didn't talk too much about it on this call, but the cultural arts are absolutely a huge part of the campaign. We sing along with our chants. We've had folks bring in dance element, and then of course the artwork for the signage and stuff. But we've had poets and different performers. And so just lifting up all those ways of expression, but that also raise awareness. Yeah, no store on the website.
Thank you.
So if I will ask our national contacts. So just another quick peek. So there's the national team, and then there's regions. So then we have like a person who's part of the national coordinating committee, who is our like regional contact, and her name is Calandra. She just took over for Kate, if any of you knew Kate. She's still with the Poor People's Campaign, different role. Calandra's taking over for our region, which I think actually even changed, potentially expanded maybe. Kansas is in there, maybe they're new. So if you're also feeling like you might want to be on the state coordinating committee in the future, beyond getting a chapter starting, ruminate on that. We'll talk about that in the future. Yeah, in terms of Black, Indigenous, people of color, poets, I think that's all we've had actually perform at our local events. Somewhat tapped into the arts community here. So yeah, but always open to new suggestions. You can always send us stuff in email, Facebook, tag us. Maybe that's not the best way. Send it in a message. Tags get, those notifications get, yeah, a message is the best. What else? I'm seeing emails get dropped in. That's great. I'm going to, again, email out the getting started document that will also link back to, for those of you who need a little bit more history on the campaign and maybe want to see some of the things we've done over the last couple of years, that can.
For Washington State?
Yeah, for Washington State.
Yeah, yes.
Cool. So you guys can, yeah, kind of learn a little bit about what we've done and maybe watch some of the videos from some of our actions down in Olympia and hear just a little bit about those events. And then we're going to go ahead and schedule for just my personal, it'll probably be more like a Sunday evening call if I'm going to be the one running it. So not too late, not this late. It won't be this late. Maybe like a 4 or 5 o'clock on a Sunday in a couple weeks. We can go ahead and do kind of a check-in call for folks who want to. I'll send it out still to everybody who joined this call, so we can kind of keep it a little bit smaller, folks, hopefully that heard at least part of our conversation tonight. So we can kind of make that a somewhat private event for folks that were in this call and dropped their email addresses, that is. So if you haven't done that yet, please do. What else? Who else has questions or things that we want to get in? I'm going to give us a 5-minute warning so that we can all get to our evenings. I'm sorry, Gail, did you want to say something?
I'll chime in real quick before I break off. Again, I just want to thank everybody for your time, presence, and energy. As Christina said, there's a lot involved energy going on right now, and that's what really builds this movement. Like I was talking about, we're just getting things oiled up and ready. So provide that energy, just being here is a major help to everybody. And anything you can do from here on out, any ideas you have, I'll drop my email in the feed right now. Feel free to contact me, and if you just want to talk, This is basically, I try to be involved in as many meetings with multiple organizations as I can that I feel have the same idea, moving forward as a society in a more humane way. This just happens to be the very best one that I've ever found, because they have a unifying understanding. There's their name in their platform, in the way they go about things, whereas a couple other ones that I'm involved in have divisive names, which is not necessarily a purposeful thing, but that's just the way that vocabulary works. And or they're divisive because they're part of a certain political party, and that's just the way that is. This is not part of a political party. This represents basic human standards. And I saw someone say something about poor people. There's poor people in Bainbridge or something. It's not for poor people. It's about raising the standards of living to a humane standard, and it's representing poor people to basically eradicate poverty and that whole disease of our society that comes from things. And all these different things that they have on their platform are associated, they're symptoms of a main disease. And that's why we have to attack them all. And that's why it's such a broad umbrella. It's kind of hard to get in one meeting, Inga. So if you check out the website and read what they have, they break it down into a lot of things. It'll take some time, but it'll probably help you digest what they're about a lot better. So again, thank you very much. I have to go enjoy my wife and my dinner.
Please do.
You guys have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. That was a lovely recap. I love the engine analogy. Okay, last call. This was such a good call. I'm gonna save this chat too and put it in the notes in the email. So any last words, last thoughts, stuff that we can talk about for the next call?
Yeah, did we what about, I've been trying to figure out how to save the chat, because there's a lot of information, email addresses and things we talked about in the chat. It seems like I was able to copy and paste, but I'm not sure if I got everything. Let me see.
Okay. I'll go ahead. I'm able to like download it. And so when I send out the email, did you put your email in here?
Yes and no, but let me see.
Just do it one more time. Just for,
I was able to download it as well, but I wasn't able to open it up.
oh, okay. Well, I'll send it. I'll make sure I send it in the body. That way it doesn't have to be a separate attachment. I'll put it right there in the email. So
are you on Apple? You got Apple?
I'm not. I'm on a.
Okay, all I need to do, I just need to find something to open it up. What I do is I think, but anyway, somebody else go ahead and weigh in while we weighing out, and let me go.
We'll make sure everybody gets the full chat, so if you don't have to worry about trying to save it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask Lillian.
Oh,
I sent you an email with asking you, I'd like to come and visit your church. Are you guys
like to come to our church?
Are you guys meeting online? I mean, meeting on the Zoom or something?
We are on Facebook, and we stream our service on Facebook and on YouTube. But this past Sunday, the one on YouTube froze up. So I always go on Facebook. So if you go on Facebook and then you type in UCUCC.
Yeah. What I do, I got your email. What I do, I have didn't mean to cut you off, but I know.
No, that's okay. Email me.
Yeah, I'll email you.
Yeah.
Just tie me in.
Yeah.
Okay.
You bet. We'll get you there.
All right. Thank
Beautiful.
We'll get you in the choir next.
Hey.
I listen to your
you.
voice.
You want to give me the choir? I can't sing, but yeah, I can help you out.
I don't know. You got a good voice.
No, I can't sing. I wish I could sing.
Okay, well, this is lovely. I love seeing all the connections. Love seeing people that I've met in person, online. It's always good. We usually do a closeout. Sometimes it's faith-centered. I'm just gonna leave you with one of my favorite quotes from a pastor, actually, which for me is rare, but her name's LaVon Proverbs Briggs, and she says, "Be well, And if it's not well, it's not the end.
Amen.
Leave you with that. Be well, and look out for my email, or it'll come from Washington at poorpeoplescampaign.org.
Okay, everybody.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Good night, all.
All
Good
right.
night.
See you guys next time.